Les Miles this time around, I would tell you, is shaming his players for opting out. He was asked the question, do you have any players that are opting out? And this was his response.
Well, I don't know if they opt out because of the pandemic, then they opt into the pandemic. The last I saw it, the pandemic was worldwide. Okay, and so I don't know that their advantage is, to turn at this point in time.
So just to clarify, your team has not had any players opt out of playing this season?
Well, Antoine Frazier, who they just mentioned at the, for the porthole, that was a decision of opt out.
Okay, you opt out, you're opting into the virus. Oh, yeah, by the way, we had a guy opt out. This guy's a dummy. He's opting into the virus. That's what you get right there from Les. Really inspiring the players on his current team. Here's how you handle it, all right? I mean, this was how Chris Klieman handled it just a week ago.
We've had a few, and like I said, we're going to support those decisions, and then we got to move forward with the guys that are going to participate and play. But rest assured, we've supported those guys, and we're going to continue to supply them with the stuff they need, from the academic side of things to the mental health to athletic training, whatever it may be.
Which coach do you want to play for?
Coach number 2.
Which coach do you want to play for out of those two?
I really like that second guy. He sounds nice.
Seems nice. Seems supportive.
He sounds like he's won more national championships out of those two coaches.
He also was asked a specific question about Jonathan Alexander, who, if you have followed Jonathan Alexander's social media activity, I mean, listen, I don't want to crack on the kid too hard, but if there is somebody that you want to be critical of and question the decision to opt out based on his actions after that and what he has done and how he's out like hanging out with people on a football field with no masks and things like that after opting out, there are some legitimate questions to be asked about Jonathan Alexander and his motivations. But again, for Klieman, it's an easy answer.
Well, I supported Jonathan. He came in and visited with Coach Malone and I and just didn't feel comfortable and needed to do some things for himself. They felt more comfortable, and that's all there really was to it. We said we supported him. You're still a part of the K-State football team. It's just going to be from kind of virtual or from afar now.
That's all it takes. That's all it takes. That's the only answer that you need to have. Because if you are a coach right now, there's no reason to be getting off your hot take about the pandemic. I can even say for Mike Gundy, who in April had that ridiculous quote about stimulating the Oklahoma economy, and these guys need to get back out there. At least that was April, when this was all still fresh, and everybody is extremely emotionally charged then. I mean, by this point, we're all just beat down. So just love up your players. Support the players. This is not the time to be getting out your weird, crappy hot takes about coronavirus out there. You're a guy running a football program being paid 7 figures in order to do so. You need to be worried about winning games and what sells with your players. That's what they're paying you for. That's what the few people who do actually attend Kansas football games are paying their money for. You need to be the guy that's all about the players to win games, and on top of that, oh, by the way, just support them because they're human beings. I mean, it's so easy, and Les Miles is just so good at being so bad with the easy things. And this is another one, and it's far more damning than us just making fun of him about going off about Chinese fast food.
Yeah, I mean, there are just some jobs that people have where there are some things that whether you believe them or have thought of it, you just shouldn't say. We talked about it earlier this week. It wasn't on as much of a serious scale, but, there are just times in the past where being around K-State, there are just certain things you wouldn't say or criticize Bill Snyder for because he's the reason that we still talk about K-State football to this day probably. But this is something much more serious for Les Miles that, hey, even if you think these things, you don't say them out loud.
Well, here's an easier example to me of that, Mason. I'm not even going to use I'm not going to use Bud for this example.
Well,
I'm going to
use.
Okay, you'll understand why.
Okay.
your girl comes up to you and says, hey, like, do I look good in this dress? The answer is yes. I don't care what the real answer is.
Yeah.
The answer is yes,
Truth.
because your job in that moment is to preserve your relationship and preserve your happiness. Happy wife, happy life. You have to preserve that. The answer is yes in this situation. All right, there's a case to be made for these players being safer in their programs. Yes, but you have to understand, guys have individual situations. They may have family members that are sick, and you just don't want to leave yourself susceptible to that. So the answer is we're going to support them if they do choose to opt out. That's it. That's all you do.
Well, yeah, exactly. If he just skips to the end of what he said, because after he says, if you're opting out, you're opting into the virus, you skip through all of that, the mumbling and bumbling and stumbling, you get to the end where he says, we're going to, wish him the best of luck wherever he ends up next or whatever happens next. You just have to say that, or just say, use coach speak to handle a situation as serious as the coronavirus. I would also liken it to, any teachers that are listening probably go home every week. They have at least one or two kids in their class where to their family they're going to say some things that you're not going to say to anybody else or say about your students. You know why? Because you just shouldn't as a teacher. But sometimes you have to get some things off your chest that you believe in. Les, go home and do it with your wife, with your kids. Don't do it in a press conference where you say, you know what, these kids that are opting out, they're actually opting into the virus.
Well, and I want to look at it this way with this situation. And this is for Les. He's lucky that every time he has a press conference, local media and the media in Kansas City are completely breaking down his audio and the video and tweeting it out to the world. Because what if that gets out to a potential recruit that wants to come to KU, is thinking about coming to KU, but he's from an area that has COVID much worse than it does in Lawrence, Kansas, and they have seen what it's done to their community and how much more serious it is over there, and they want to come to KU, and their coach doesn't have his back when it comes to something that's killed 175,000 Americans in 6 months. That's concerning to me if I'm a big-time recruit, thinking about leaving home, going a long way away, and not to a coach that doesn't have my back in a big situation.
Yeah, I would just say, it's much more, to me, broader. It's much more broad than just coronavirus and does he have my back here. It's now the question is he going to have my back when X, Y, or Z happens on down the road? This is a player empowerment era of college football. Is my coach going to have my back when a racist neo-Nazi on campus tweets something extremely racist and harmful and I want to stop practicing because of it? Does that sound familiar? Is my coach going to have my back in that scenario? I mean, listen to this. We haven't even played this yet, but he was then asked a follow-up question, and kudos to Matt Galloway of the Topeka Capital Journal, who was actually nailing Les down with some questions on this. But he's asking him, can players in the future, like other guys who are going to opt out, can they stick around on campus? And again, how difficult is it to just say, of course we'll support them, but no, Les ain't doing that.
Yeah, I don't. If they basically don't want to play anymore, I would have. I mean, certainly, if it's based on the idea that they've not progressed to this point, or a bunch of other coronavirus interest or reasons for not being as talented as they would normally be, they could stay on campus. You bet.
32 seconds into the answer of stammering and stuttering, and does that inspire confidence? If you are a player on that team, if you are a recruit, does that inspire confidence that this guy is going to have my back? No, because he can't. He doesn't want to say it, and it takes him so long to bet. It's a combination of it conflicts with what he's already said about being big coronavirus tough guy, and he ain't cognitively all the way there. So it takes him 32 seconds just to say, yes, if a player opts out, I will allow them to stay on campus. It took him 32 seconds for that. Meanwhile, Chris Klieman asked about guys who on Twitter are acting a fool, and it's, no, you know what, 2 seconds in, he made his choice, we'll support him, mental health, whatever it is that anybody needs, we're right there for him. You should feel very good about your football coach and where you are at compared to where things are down the road in Lawrence, Kansas. And that's been accentuated once again by this latest Les conference.